Recording is on.
All right, all right. Thanks for joining me, Laith. Um, Now, a lot has happened. A lot of crazy things have happened last few days, shortly after Benjamin Netanyahu's visit to the United States. They kind of signaled that everything was going to be Iran, 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 everything Iran, its proxies. That's how they were going to present it. And I think one thing that you had mentioned earlier, you saying that basically the U.S. kind of greenlighted all of these assassination attempts, um, and actually, I think Ansarullah basically said the same thing. So just a basic comment on what you think of that. They basically came to the same conclusion.
Yep. It was clear to me that Netanyahu, and by the way, we would call him in Arabic Netanyahu, and Nitan means rotten. So the Ratanyahu, it actually rhymes with his name in English even. Went to Washington, D.C. to get the green light for the continuation of this war and the expansion of it regionally. And this is number one because the Zionist military is defeated. Its ground forces in Gaza has been defeated. Its air superiority is destroyed with Hezbollah in Lebanon, and its naval power has been destroyed by the Ansarullah in Yemen. So it was clear that in order for this Zionist colony to continue existence, it needs a direct intervention by the empire that sponsors it in Washington, D.C. To see the nonstop standing ovations that he received in his speech in front of the joint Congress Senate session, and the statements by both Biden, Harris, and Trump all indicated that we're going in this direction. And it's a wonder that it didn't happen already while he was still in Washington, D.C. But given that the assassination here in Beirut was specifically targeting a leader of Hezbollah that was on the FBI wanted list, that's a sure thing that they had gotten the approval. And similarly with the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh in Iran, this is the leader of the negotiating team that the Israelis are supposedly negotiating with. So again, it would have needed an American approval. So yes, we're here because of the United States, and whatever comes next will include the U.S. in whatever regional war comes out in the next 24, 48 hours.
So I guess now, unfortunately, I kind of predicted that this was going to end up being kind of an all or nothing war based on the way Israel behaved from the beginning. I could kind of see that, unfortunately, it was either going to be full scale invasion of Israel, destruction of Israel. That's the only way to stop this whole thing. Or um, I was just wondering whether people on the ground kind of predicted it was going to go this far. That was going to end up taking these steps, and what maybe your personal opinion of how things are going to go. Did you think that um, the basically the actual losses of the Israeli army in trying to prosecute this war in Gaza was going to force them to relent like it did in 2005, or did you kind of have an inching feeling that it was going to end up being one of these apocalyptic wars where it's either one side wins or the other side wins completely and the other side gets wiped out totally?
Well, looking at the Axis of Resistance leadership, their speeches, their pronouncements since October 7th, it was clear to me, at least, that the Axis of Resistance was trying to limit the killing field to just the Gaza extermination camp and to have all the other fronts to be support fronts that play out in a war of attrition. And their idea, and I think this is what I can interpret from all these speeches and pronouncements over the last 10 months, is that Israel will collapse internally and there will be no need for a full out war that will result in millions of martyrs. I personally, from day one, speaking on all the media that I have spoken on, said that this will not work out that way. And I think this is because maybe either that the leadership in the axis of resistance didn't calculate how fascist the leadership in the West, not in Israel, is. The leadership in the United States and Canada and the EU, how fascist they are, and how central Zionism is to their identity. So either that, or that the axis of resistance leadership was purposefully giving hope to the population that we will not end up in a full-out war to liberate Palestine, that this will end in the internal collapse. This is the only interpretations I have in my mind of why somebody like myself as an analyst can see the reality that we are going in this direction no matter what. And there's a few indicators also that could maybe direct us to interpret that actually the axis of resistance was just trying to assure its public. They knew that it's going to go to this direction. And those are the naming of the operation on October 7th, Al-Aqsa flood, and the fact that every martyr in Lebanon, in Syria, in Iraq, in Yemen, that perished since the beginning of this battle has been titled Martyr on the Path to Jerusalem. Okay, so in a way, you could see that the axis of resistance leadership knew that this has to end with the liberation of Jerusalem and Palestine. Now, did they predict that this is how it's going to play out? That's something that only access to internal documents will tell us in the coming years.
Yeah, I think this will definitely be something to study and analyze in future war colleges 10, 20 years from now, for sure. Now, the question that I have a little bit is, it looks like basically most people are of the consensus that this happened because the U.S. approved it. They killed basically a lead negotiator in the talks supposedly to end the war in Gaza, basically saying that there's no end to the war in Gaza. And now it looks like if they've signaled they've approved it, it also means that U.S. forces are mobilized and prepared to try to deal with the response, particularly from Iran, because it's an open secret now that Israel cannot defend themselves from Iran on their own. They cannot do it. The Iron Dome is not going to protect them from uh, the missile technology of Iran. So, just a question about where U.S. soldiers are positioned, where U.S. fighter jets are positioned, anti-air defenses. I know that Jordan is basically a key ally to Israel, and they did a lot of the work in trying to intercept missiles going towards Israel. Um, what are U.S. soldiers doing basically in that area? Um, like basically in the parts of Syria they occupied, in Jordan where they're working with the Jordanian military, and basically in the Gulf countries in terms of intelligence? Like, what do you know? Like, are you privy to that information of what they're doing exactly in the area to kind of prepare themselves for the inevitable missile strikes that are going to come from Iran towards Israel?
Well, we don't know what's happening in the ground, but we can look at the movement of American supply ships and transport ships over the last 48 hours, and there was a fever of activities in and out of these bases and into the stockpile zones of the weapons inside the Zionist colony and inside Jordan. Flights nonstop from Qatar, Bahrain, and Saudi, where the bulk of the American forces are. And, there was an attack, of course, last night also on the popular mobilization units in Iraq by American aircraft firing from outside Iraqi airspace. This comes also as just before that, there was attacks on Ain al-Assad, the largest American base in Iraq, occupation base, multiple drones and multiple guided missiles. And there was attacks on the American occupation bases in Deir ez-Zor in Syria. So the attack, the response that's going to come, because the attack last night was a coordinated US, NATO, Israeli attack on 3 members of the Axis of Resistance. 4 members, if you count, the Palestinians being assassinated on the territory of Iran. So it was an attack on Lebanon, an attack on Iraq, attack on Iran, and attack on Palestine all at once, coordinated by these vicious, satanic, great Satan and his little Satan. Then the response clearly will come from a coalition coordinated by the Axis of Resistance and from multiple territories. So what we should be expecting in the next 24, 48 hours is a large attack coming from Lebanon, from Iraq, and from Yemen, maybe even from Syria. And the targets will not only be in the Zionist colony, but also American bases in the region. And, one wonders how the Jordanian government will be responding to this in their public statements or in their military actions. And how would the Iraqi resistance forces that are right now stationed on the border of Jordan would act similarly? What is going to be the actions of the Syrian government and Syrian military and the Syrian national mobilization units on the ground there? I think we're right now kind of edging into the unknown territory that you can't predict what's going to happen, what's going to be the reaction of the various parties. Look, maybe last time when Jordan intervened on behalf of the Zionist colony to shoot down Iranian missiles and drones, there wasn't much action on the ground inside Jordan, by the population of Jordan. But today, this is an assassination of Ismail Haniyeh, the head of political bureau of Hamas, which has wide support on the ground in Jordan, in the Muslim Brotherhood in Jordan, and outside even the Palestinian community in Jordan. And if the Jordanian military intervenes on the side of Israel to stop the retaliation on the assassination of Haniyeh, not anymore the attack on the Iranian embassy in Damascus, what is the population of Jordan going to be doing? These are legitimate questions to ask right now, and we don't have an answer for them. But it's it's clear that if the United States also intervenes directly in this war, American embassies across the region will be legitimate targets, not only by the axis of resistance, but regular civilians in Jordan, in Egypt, in Tunis, and what have you. It's going to be an all-out war. That means that all American assets are legitimate targets, and that not only includes the bases, and anyone that stands with them will also be a target. I tell you, if the Jordanians intervene against the axis of resistance in this war, even Jordanian embassies in the region will be a target, and I don't think the Jordanian people as a whole would reject that.
Okay, so we are heading into the unknown. So there's no real way to actually predict, based on what you're saying, what this war is going to look like, how it's going to unfold. But we do know it's out of scope now. It is basically out of. It is not just going to be Gaza. It's not just going to be the West Bank. It is definitely regional as of now, as of today, and it's only going to get bigger than that. Now, I just want to get a little bit of clarity because I think I saw something. Maybe it was just a Twitter post. It said that Israeli media had claimed that. I think you had said somewhere that Iranian media had actually officially posted it was a surface-to-surface missile, and I got a recent post saying that actually Israeli media had said that this was from the sea. So that means basically from Strait of Hormuz area, that area, basically shooting a cruise missile somewhere from a submarine or something like that, and then hitting Haniyeh's. Um, Now I'm just wondering about that. What kind of logistic support would US have to provide for them to be able to do something like that? Like, how do their spy activities work in the region? What do they? Do you have any knowledge about that? Like what planes they use and how they're able to try to see things, maybe jam certain GPSs, and jam like or any defenses in that situation.
Yeah, look, we're now already in the fog of war. The war didn't fully open up, but we're still under the fog of war. And so multiple statements are coming from different factions and sides, and we can't really tell the full truth. But according to the Iranian government, up until now, which we're expecting also in a few hours, there will be a more detailed, uh, you know, telling by the Iranian government of what happened. But according to the Iranian government, up until now, it's a surface-to-surface missile fired from a neighboring territory, neighboring country, and that it was directed to the residence where Ismail Haniyeh was staying. Remember, yesterday was the inauguration, actually, of the new president of Iran, and Ismail Haniyeh was amongst a big number of international delegates that were there to celebrate that day. And he was staying at the veterans residence compound for Iranian military veterans. It's like a, kind of a resort compound for that services the, ex-Iranian military forces veterans, and that he was killed along with his companion that was with him, his bodyguard, basically. This is all we know from the Iranian side. Now, what does this mean? That means that it could have come in from Azerbaijan, Kurdish Iraq region, Turkey, I don't doubt Turkey, but Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi, or the Emirates. This is the only possibilities that we can see of where it came from. They haven't identified yet. Let's say it came from the sea, as the Israelis are claiming, then it must have come from territorial waters of countries that are across from Iran. It couldn't have come all the way from the international waters in the Arabian Sea, or because it would have had a long way to travel through Iranian territory unidentified. It makes more sense that it came from a nearer target. But again, it's still all speculation, and they will be contradicting statements until we have the full facts laid out to us by the Iranians. Ultimately, it doesn't matter. What we know right now is that Iranians and the axis of resistance as a whole are going to attack the Zionist colony in retaliation, and most probably American bases in retaliation. And at that point, it's not going to matter where the original shots got fired from, because at that point, everything and every country in this region and every American base in this region and every vessel of the United States in this region and every part of the axis of resistance will be embroiled in a full-out war the minute the response of the axis of resistance comes, and that will be an irrelevant fact to discuss. Where did this missile come from?
I guess, yeah, it won't matter at that point because, yeah, it'll be, I guess, World War III at that point. So it won't matter.
Yes, I mean, for sure, Russia is not going to stand quiet if the United States intervenes. And we already heard, Foreign Affairs Minister of Russia saying that they will not stay aside on the side of the countries if the United States intervenes in this war. We already heard Turkey. I don't believe Erdogan is a big and a clown, but I mean, Turkey claimed that they will intervene if there's a full-out war between just Lebanon and the Zionist colony, that they will invade from the sea. Is he going to do it or not? It doesn't matter. We can see how things right now are unpredictable. It could be that actually Turkey joins. And what will Jordan or Egypt do? Will Egypt then stand still if Turkey brings its navy to its shores? Things are right now unpredictable, but clearly there's no coming back from this. We've already passed the abyss, past the edge, the cliff, and we're right now in the free fall. We don't know where the ground is going to be. We don't know what we're going to hit on the way down. If there's a full-out war and the whole region is embroiled in it, what will Algeria do? Will it blockade the Strait of Tunis and Sicily and stop NATO from crossing into the East Mediterranean? All of these are questions that we don't know answers to, but we clearly will have answers to them in the very, very near future. And the ceiling of this war can end is unpredictable. We could be in a full-out world war that includes nuclear weapons. Again, if the Israelis are, which they are crazy, they are rabid dogs. That's what Zionists are. If the Zionists use nuclear weapon to defend themselves against the axis of resistance, we already have the words of the president of Belarus and the president of the Democratic Republic of Korea, who both said they will provide nuclear umbrella protection for the axis of resistance members. We will not even have to wait for Russia and China to intervene with nukes. You see, this is going to be a war that engulfs, at the least of it, all of the surroundings of Asia on all sides.
Where, yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's over the cliff already. My goodness. Um, and yeah, just wondering about that. The Mossos, I think that's one thing. I think Richard Medhurst had said that's where the nuclear stockpile is, and that was a potential target for Hezbollah if they felt backed into a corner, if they felt that Israel was going overboard with the firepower they were using on Lebanon. We now see that basically all of Israel is basically now a possible target. We see all the American bases are now a target. Um, is there any like? Do you have any like prior documents to say like what U.S. contingency plans, what NATO contingency plans were in the event that all of the bases were directly targeted by Iran or another country with the kind of capabilities that Iran has in terms of long range missile fire, things like that. Because I think they do have documents. Sometimes they release publicly about what they're going to do in certain war games when things get to basically World War level. But do they have they had contingency plans set up for what would happen in the Middle East, particularly? Because I think they've come to the conclusion that the Zionist colony is something that they absolutely need to keep, they need to protect, they need to preserve, no matter what. And if they lose this, they basically they've come to the conclusion that they lose access basically to the oil in the region, and that sets basically the downfall of NATO in the long term. So like just any privy knowledge of any contingency plans that they've come up with in case of this scenario.
Yeah, I don't have knowledge of their contingency plans, and I don't think they have made them public. They definitely probably will be keeping them a secret, tight secret for now. But let's imagine this war breaking out. How are they going to extract their soldiers once their airfields are destroyed? Because the first thing that the axis of resistance will be doing, and especially here in Lebanon, is that they will be destroying all the number one Israeli airfields. Number two, any airfields that the Israeli Air Force would be landing in and or trying to use as a replacement for the destruction of their airfields. So that means in Jordan, in the American occupation bases in Iraq and Syria, in Cyprus, and maybe if the Saudis and the Qataris allow the Israelis to land in their fields, to also be targeted there. So whatever American soldiers are on the ground right now are going to be, ducks or fish in a pond, in a bowl. That they're going to be fodder to actually the war machine. And most probably, I think the Americans would want them to be killed so they can mobilize their population into the full-out intervention that is going to come. But again, once that happens, all American ships that could be bringing troops or carrying war jets on them will also be sunk. Up until now, Ansarullah in Yemen has purposefully not sunk American aircraft carriers. Now we will see them sink if they are used in this conflict. If Lebanon is targeted by the American naval attack group that is on the way right now from Italy, then those ships will all be sunk. Um, where we will go from there, what the Americans will do with their troops, that's all open for debate. And I'm kind of of the opinion that they want them to die, so they could be used as fodder to, uh, whip up the population of the United States.
Yeah, I see. I think it does kind of make sense for American propaganda to be able to kind of demonize the people that killed their glorious soldiers fighting for freedom and democracy and human rights. I think. But yeah, like thank you very much. Um, this has been very good, informative discussion. I just have one final question. Anything that you can kind of signal to basically people, particularly in the NATO states, but maybe the rest of the world in general, as to what's coming, what you think people can do to kind of support one way or the other, or just any like messages of encouragement, if there are any.
Yeah, I mean, anybody that lives in the West and does not want to be complicit in the genocide and the attacks that we see on these countries and or the coming war have a very short window to take action. And I don't mean go demonstrate or picket somewhere or write something on Twitter or Facebook. I'm saying go and occupy and dismantle and ransack military offices in places in the West, Zionist lobby organizations, politicians' offices, bases, military factories. Take direct action. Otherwise, your silence will be counted like the silence of the Germans that didn't fight back in World War II against the Nazis that controlled them. Nobody will remember you in a good light as somebody that was haram. They couldn't do anything. They were under a regime of repression. We live as Palestinians, as Arabs, as Muslims, as people in Africa and Asia. We live under the most harshest regime of imperial rule that humanity has seen. The Palestinians in Gaza have lived that for decades, and they have the courage to stand up and fight back this monster that comes from your homelands. And if you don't stand up, you don't deserve living. Not that only that you don't deserve to be remembered in a good light, you don't deserve living on this earth as a Westerner that doesn't take action. Uh, my brothers and sisters across the world, outside the imperial domains, you will have now the responsibility to open other battlefields, other war fronts on the enemy of humanity, the Zionists and their masters in Washington, D.C. You have the ability to take over American embassies, Israeli embassies in those countries, like our brothers and sisters did in 1979 in Iran. You have the ability to confront any American bases on your territory, military confront them, take them on. And this together, already look, Palestine, Gaza has been liberating the whole planet for the last 10 months. Our people here in the region have taken a lot of beating on behalf of humanity. And now is the time to take your chance and to deliver on your duties to aid in this endeavor to liberate humanity from American imperialism and Zionism.
Beautiful, beautiful. Beautiful statement, beautiful words, and I couldn't have said it any better myself, of course. So, yeah, thank you very much, Laith. Um, Looking forward to releasing this along with the the written article where we kind of just break down everything that's going on in their troop movements and everything. So looking forward to all of that. And
Thank you, brother.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Have a good one,
You
brother.
too.